Welcome into the Fade. I'm your fearless leader, Clay Travis. She is Kelly Stewart, and we have got a lot of games to dive into with all of you, including some really kind of, I think, frankly, super difficult ones in college football, Kelly, because many SEC fans, I think, are starting to recognize that the quality of talent in NIL has been distributed not only in college football larger, but also in the conference in a way that some of these numbers, I think, jump out at me. And we're going to get into that in a bit. But let's start as we typically do. We're taping this on Thursday morning. So, again, if the numbers move or you guys are reacting to something news-wise that may come out, as it might, because in particular, Texas OU, we're waiting to see what the story is with John Mateer. Is he going to play or not? But let's go to the game that's going on tonight. Going to get a lot of attention. Eagles, defending Super Bowl champs. Yes, they are 4-1, but there is a lot of drama surrounding this team. A lot of optimism for Jackson Dart, but obviously with the injury situation they've had, not a ton of talent surrounding him necessarily. The Eagles are on the road. They're over a touchdown favorite. What stands out to you in this game, Kelly, as we get ready tonight?
Clay, this is interesting because if you were on the Broncos last week like I was, and several other games that flipped late, you kind of feel like, hey, I got a lot of luck on my side. Remember, the Eagles 17-3 at home, fourth quarter, and then somehow lose that game 21-17. Look, the Broncos got to Jalen Hurts. They sacked him 6 times. Then there was a couple flags that went against the Eagles. Right, wrong, or indifferent, they had that loss. Jackson Dart, on the other hand, went into New Orleans. 3 turnovers, kind of turned into a pumpkin after beating the Chargers the previous week. So, look, you've got to think about what this divisional game means. It means a lot to the Giants and not as much to Philadelphia. But the problem is Philadelphia has absolutely owned the Giants for the last 2 decades. I mean, if you were born in the 2000s, you probably hate the Eagles if you're a Giants fan, and rightfully so. That being said, it's still one of those divisional home underdogs. Usually I'm leaning towards the under here. And I will say that I want to lean towards the Giants, but I think I'm just going to wuss out, Clay. I'm going to put Philadelphia in teasers. I think they come out of MetLife with the win, but I would not be surprised to see Brian Dable as a home underdog get the late cover.
All right, what else do you love in the NFL? Are there things that have you fired up that you are super excited about? I'll run through my NFL six-pack here in a moment. And we haven't been great in the NFL so far this season. At least I haven't been. You can tell people how you've done. What are you liking the most in the NFL slate this week?
Clay, surprisingly, I've done very well in the NFL this year as in terms of picking every game on the board. When I'm supposed to pick 1 or 2 games, not so well. I have this contest that I'm in. You pick every single game on the board. I'm sitting in 3rd place with 50 wins. It's wild to see. But one of the games that I like this week is the New Orleans Saints. I'm not sure the New England Patriots are legit yet. Hey, they had a great win in Buffalo, but I think this is one of those flat spots, and we're going to see. I just mentioned the Giants going into the Saints. That defense forcing Jackson Dart to turn the ball over. I like Vrabel. I like where this team is headed, but I think we're getting a little bit too much love in the marketplace for a scrappy Saints team who Kellen Moore finally got his first win. Spencer Rattler finally got his first win. They kind of get that monkey off their back. Now they're going to be playing better at home. I like the Saints plus 3.5. I also like another ugly dog, and you're going to laugh at me for this, but this is more of a play against the Raiders than it is on your Tennessee Titans. The bottom line is, do you really trust the Raiders as a favorite? I don't think so. Geno Smith, 9 interceptions on the season. We're starting Pete Carroll's career. And that Titans game was absolutely bananas. I think those types of wins carry over momentum-wise. We all know they're staying out west, going into Vegas. There is no home field advantage there. And I think a lot of people have been saying all week, well, Kelly, what would the line have been if Tennessee would not have had that miraculous upset? Well, it opened at 6. But of course, and if you look at these lines from over the summer, guess what? Vegas -4. Nothing really has changed over the last 6 weeks that warrants this type of overreaction. And to think that the Raiders somehow again aren't going to shoot themselves in the foot, you're absolutely wrong. I bet against them last week, and I'm betting against them this week. And the other ugly wouldn't say ugly, I guess. A less than desirable underdog is going to be Seattle, right? Gut-wrenching loss there at home to the Bucks. Jacksonville squeaks out a win over the Chiefs there Monday night. We all saw it. Hey, Sam Darnold, man, he has been really, really great. 1 interception, 4 touchdowns, 28 of 34, 341 yards, and lost that game. You got to think. Trevor Lawrence also had a handful of mistakes there on Monday night. Kansas City was not able to capitalize. Seahawks 4-1 against the spread in their next 5 games when playing opponent coming off a Monday night game. Jaguars just not that impressive. I've been low on the Chiefs this year. I know a lot of people still read the names on the front of the jersey, but not me. I think Seattle goes into Jacksonville and gets the outright win.
All right, we disagree on the Patriots. I believe in Mike Vrabel. I think they're actually pretty good. One of the good picks I had last week was liking them on the road against Buffalo when almost no one would touch them. Now, I didn't have them on the money line. I had them to cover. I also am taking the Raiders. The series of events that had to happen for the Titans to win that game by 1 point should have every Arizona Cardinal fan sick beyond belief. You got Kyler Murray dropping snaps. You got interceptions that turn into touchdowns after the ball gets kicked into the end zone. And obviously dropping the ball. And I was on the Cardinals last week. Short of, in fact, that was the game that cost me having a winning record. Short of the end zone to me, I think you got to fire a guy. So I'm on opposite sides there. What do you think? I like the Steelers against the Browns. I know they're going to Dylan Gabriel theoretically, but I think the Browns, when they traded Flacco, are effectively letting everybody know, hey, we're waving the flag. We're in the sweepstakes to have the number 1 overall pick, and we want to take a new quarterback. I've got the Bucks. You mentioned the Bucks getting the win. That 49ers team has found ways. I was wrong on them against the Rams. I think the Bucks get the win there. They're a small home favorite. And then I'm taking the Lions as the underdog in the big game against the Chiefs. And I wanted to ask you this. Are the Ravens just done? I mean, are we just going to have to turn the page on this season and say, because they're now underdogs again, it doesn't look like Lamar Jackson is going to play. At some point, almost a part of me thinks like they're just going to sit Lamar for several weeks and just say, hey, we're punting on this entire season because sitting at 1-4, it feels like they're done. They have the same record as the Titans.
Yeah, I mean, look, but yet they're still favored to win the AFC North at a couple of different chops. And I sent that to our good friend Errol Epstein, who is the resident Ravens fan, and she doesn't know what to say because we don't. Lamar Jackson is the leader on that team. Cooper Rush could not have looked worse last week. We know there's injuries piling up on the defensive side of the ball. Look, what are the sayings about Harbaugh in the community, right? Looks like they quit after the Chiefs game. Looks like they didn't care last week. What has gone wrong and what succession order? I don't know. That's the problem. I wish I knew. This is a game I have to completely stay away from. I think power ratings wise, this Ravens team is still very good. Even with Cooper Rush, could Cooper Rush play as bad as he did last week? Do I want to take the 7.5? Absolutely not, Clay. Last week I thought, all right, the Titans, this is out of control. 2.5 on the road. I'll put the Ravens in a bunch of teasers. And guess what? That cost me a pretty penny. So until you have more of the information, we can't sit here and argue and say that there's value from a numbers perspective. I don't know enough to wager my money on this team.
All right. Anything else you love in the NFL, or let's go to what I think is going to be a really difficult slate in college football to break down?
I wanted to touch on Sunday Night Football because you and I are on the same side here with the Lions. I think a lot of people are buying into this being this super fishy line and they don't understand it. And normally I would argue, you got to play the Chiefs here, right? It just looks too good to be true. And fading teams off big wins has usually been favorable, but not for Dan Campbell's Lions. Following a win of at least 7 points or more, Detroit has gone 21-5 against the spread. Dan Campbell as an underdog, 11-2. This is a Chiefs team that I would agree has started to look better each week. And yes, the Lions defense is a little banged up, but I don't see how you lay it with the Chiefs here at home. This reminds me of that Chiefs-Eagles game where the sharp side was the Chiefs, yet all the smart people were on the other side.
I had the Chiefs that game as well. Okay, let's go into college football. And I want to start with this, Kelly. These are numbers as I am talking to all of you right now on Thursday morning. Bama, 3.5-point favorite on the road at Mizzou. That is a, like kind of a 5-alarm fire to me. I'll talk about this in a sec. You've got Oklahoma now has flipped and is favored. And again, this comes down, I think, to a large extent on what to expect from John Mateer. And Texas has been around a 1-point favorite in this game as well. And then you have Texas A&M, just a little bit over touchdown favorite over Florida. This one, I think, has got a lot of people rattled. Georgia, 3.5-point favorite over Auburn on the road. And then you've got Tennessee and LSU as decent-sized favorites in their games. But I would submit to you, Kelly, and I'm curious if you would sign off. This feels a lot like NFL numbers where, Alabama fans are used to, under Nick Saban, being 3 or 4 touchdown favorites, even in conference games. They weren't that big of a favorite against Vanderbilt. A 3.5 road point favorite for Alabama against Missouri. This is Vegas, to me, saying Alabama's just pretty good, right? They're no longer this different caliber of team. Remember, for Saban, for basically like 7 or 8 years, Alabama was favored in every game, often by double digits. This is the rest of the SEC has caught up, at least somewhat, talent-wise with Alabama. Does that partly the story here? Same thing with Georgia, by the way. Auburn looked awful on the road against Oklahoma and Texas A&M. I think even Auburn fans are like, wait a minute, we're only a field goal-ish underdog at home. These numbers really, and then obviously Oklahoma undefeated and right around to pick them against Texas. I think a lot of people are sitting back and saying, what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, you can only afford so many 5-star players now, right, Clay? It used to be, hey, I want to go to Alabama, I want to go to Georgia, I want to go to Texas. Now it's who's going to give me the bag? Who's going to pay me the most money? A lot of these kids will go to a lesser school, in their opinion, because they're going to start and they're going to get paid a lot more money. You can only afford so much, all the money in the world, and you can only buy so many players. And that's kind of what I think we've seen. Look, as far as the Missouri-Alabama game goes, I blinked. Sunday night, the lines came out. I wrote down Mizzou. I look back, and all of a sudden, here comes the Mizzou money, and I'm going, well, I think I'm too late to the party. The question is now, do you think Missouri is going to win this game? And if you do, then you could still wager on them. If you don't, I think you're missing out on a great number, and now you probably have to look live. Caitlin DeBoer was set up for absolute utter failure in Tuscaloosa because no one is going to replace Nick Saban. You can try with all your might. It's just not going to happen, and probably why Saban retired. And I think that's kind of the reality for a lot of these big-time coaches when they do retire, is trying to replicate what they did. And just because, again, the name on the front of the jersey says something doesn't mean you're going to. Mizzou, look, has been a great home dog under Drinkwitz. 5-1 against the spread as a home dog of 8 points or less. 5-2 when looking for revenge in the SEC. I like Mizzou here in the spot, but as I mentioned, I missed the number, but I think it was short for a reason here, Clay.
All right. Let me run through some of these picks because I love the over in the Alabama-Missouri game. I know you watched pretty closely. It's hard to watch I try to watch every game, but I don't think Mizzou can make plays in the passing game. I think they are weak in the secondary. Some of these plays, gaping holes in the secondary, it seems to me. I think Alabama and Ty Simpson are going to be able to score against Mizzou. I'm also not sold on this Alabama defense, Kelly. I think they have left a lot to be desired in their pass game coverage against the run. They aren't the Alabama team that we have gotten used to. So I like the over in this game. I'm totally probably going against all of the consensus wins in taking Texas to come back and beat Oklahoma after that awful performance against Florida. And then I like the Gators to go on the road against A&M. and be able to keep that game close. And I like the under in the Georgia-Auburn game and the under in Florida-Texas A&M. I like Tennessee to cover the 12.5 against Arkansas. I think Tennessee will hang 45+ on Arkansas coming out of the bye week. Of the SEC games out there, and then by the way, I also like South Carolina because I don't buy the LSU offense. I like South Carolina to make enough plays to cover that big number on the road at LSU and the under in that game. So I hit you with a ton. Do you have any takes on the SEC games?
I got a lot of takes. We'll start with South Carolina. We're either going to have a great week, Clay, or we're going to have a bad week together collectively because we're on a lot of the same sides here. I like the South Carolina team as an underdog here on the road. Yes, I know it's Death Valley at night. This one opened 10. I bet it at 9. But let's look at kind of what happened last year. South Carolina was whooping up on LSU big time, 17-0. Then Lenora Sellers gets hurt. 13 penalties, 123 yards later, and LSU comes out with a 36-33 controversial road win in Columbia. I know both these teams are off a bye, but I've been betting against LSU. If you remember, I bet against them with Florida a few weeks ago. I said this team is not that good, and it took 5 interceptions for LSU to win that game. South Carolina 10-3 against the spread in their last 13 SEC games. I like them here. I think they even have a shot to win it. They've got to protect the football and get a couple of big stops. I also am with you on Florida. We said right here, and I said last week, I said, Clay, I can't bet Florida. They're going to beat Texas. I've had them circled since the summer. I just cannot take the abuse from this team anymore. And that is the abuse from this offense. The reality is I love this defense. This defense has never been part of the problem. And speaking of defense, this is the first real defense Texas A&M will have faced all season long. When you get a beat up on subpar teams, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. Notre Dame's defense is weak. You've got Mississippi State, who let Texas A&M throw all over them. I do not think A&M is going to be able to get away with doing that with this Florida team. Florida, 7-1 as a conference underdog when coming off as an outright win. That is dating back to 2015. I like Florida to not only get the cover, but to get the win here. And as far as Texas goes, Clay, I'm just going to be honest with you. I took their season win total under. So I should not be cheering for this team. I should not be looking at this team. But I think I'm going to get to cash that ticket anyway. Maybe, just maybe last week, they waltzed into Gainesville and thought, all right, we've got Oklahoma on deck, who finally has a number in front of their name and might give us some semblance of a game. Oh, wait, Oklahoma generally makes this a game whether they're good or not. I think Texas is looking ahead. I think Arch Manning is not living up to the hype. And it's not that I think he's a bad quarterback. I think he might be injured. I think that sometimes we set these kids up for failure because of maybe their last name's Manning or they have a 5-star next to their name or whatever. Arch got brought back to life a couple of different times, brought back down to earth a couple of different times. I think against Oklahoma, he's going to have a stellar game. I know this is a low total. I see fireworks in this game. I would not be shocked to see this be a 31-28 game, Texas on top.
What else do you like out there? I've got several other college football, but the SEC is, to me, kind of the place where there's lots of games going on. Maryland, we both won on this one, Kelly, last week against Washington. I got them at a 7-point underdog at home against Nebraska. I don't know if you're with me on Maryland or not. I took Oregon. They're a little bit over a touchdown favorite against Indiana. I think coming out of the bye week there, Dan Lanning's team will be ready. What else is jumping out to you in the college? Oh, and I took, we haven't even talked about this. We probably should. Penn State with one of the all-time eggs in the history of the sport, candidly, to lose as a over 24-point favorite outright is tough to pull off. I took the over in UCLA, Michigan State, because I frankly was impressed with what we saw out of UCLA's offense, and I think Michigan State will score, and I think that UCLA will score in that game. So those are basically the rest of my picks out there. I think on the day's slate.
Yeah, Clay, we are in agreement with Maryland. Like I said, as soon as you started talking, I'm like, oh, Clay and I are seeing the board exactly the same. Hopefully that's good news for me because you've been doing better in college football than I have. And look, Maryland, gut reaction is, Kelly, do not go back to the well with this team that had a 20-point lead. I'm standing there, Clay, at the hotel bar, got the games on the TV. The groomsmen kids are like, Kelly, you got to call Clay. I'm like, you guys, he's at a football game. And one of them comes up and goes, the ALCS is on. And I'm like, no, we're going to watch Maryland. He's like, why? They're up 20-0. You're fine. Yeah. Well, guess who didn't get to hold the remote the rest of the day? That kid. Because Maryland subsequently blows a 20-point lead. They still got the cover for us, but golly, was that disgusting. But that is why I'm going back to the well. Malik Washington still completed almost 70% of his passes. That offense is still good. I don't think the Cornhuskers have the offensive firepower to be able to keep up with this Terps team. They're going to run the football. They're going to eat up the clock. You're asking them to blow a team out on the road. I just don't see this being that powerhouse of a Nebraska team. Yes, Nebraska, solid defense. Malik Washington may throw a couple picks, and we may lose this one by double digits. But if he can protect the football, I'm not trusting Nebraska, who's only won one of their last 7 road games. Just not going to do it. So I'm on Maryland. I'm on the money line with Maryland. I think they get the outright win at home, frankly, because they owe it to us. A couple other teams that I was looking at, Clay. I had Central Florida on my long list, 13.5 down to 10.5. I thought, all right, you snooze, you lose. Cincinnati has looked good since beating KU a couple weeks ago and then beating up on Iowa State last week. Central Florida, speaking of blown leads, had a 2-touchdown lead over the University of Kansas and somehow did not get that cover for us. I think they get things right here with Cincinnati in a situation where this is just a few too many points. Another double-digit underdog I'm looking at is Boston College. I'm sorry, Clemson, you beating up on North Carolina doesn't prove anything to me. This is Boston College's bowl game. I expect to get a ton from this team. Clemson might get caught, not playing their full game against a scrappier foe. We'll see how that ends up playing out for them. And I'm with you here on UCLA. They almost made my moneyline underdog. I was really impressed with them last week. Yes, that was more of a fault to Penn State. But now, once you get these offenses clicking, now that Nico is feeling comfortable there as a Bruin, I would not be surprised to see them go in and beat up on Michigan State. I know why you like the over. This Michigan State team finally has what seems like an offense. And oh, by the way, the visiting team, 17-3. At Michigan State against the spread. So I do like UCLA there. We double check, make sure there's nothing else on my long list. I think that's everything, Clay.
One more game. You have a take. I took Southern Cal in the Michigan game. To me, pretty interesting one here. The battle in the wake of Penn State losing to see who the third best Big Ten team can be is now potentially open. If Southern Cal wins this game, and I took a -2.5, if they win this game against Michigan, it puts Michigan's playoff hopes on the ropes because we still have the game against Ohio State at the end of the year, and the Wolverines are likely to be an underdog. Meanwhile, Southern Cal, they've been kind of what Southern Cal would never have thought that they would be, certainly when they hired Lincoln Riley. Irrelevant. Not particularly a storyline in college football. This gives them an opportunity to punch back. I know Indiana's on the road against Oregon. It's the better game in the Big Ten in terms of 2 undefeated teams going head-to-head. But I think this one is worthy of attention as well.
Yeah, I like USC here. Here's the lazy handicap, Clay. Lay the points with the unranked team versus the ranked team. That's where I always like to look. And then I like to dive a little bit deeper. And we just mentioned Arch Manning, and I think he's taking a lot of heat. But what about Bryce Underwood? I think he's really started to flatten out. I have not been impressed by him whatsoever. And I think one of the things that Michigan has always been known for is their defense. But I think USC's running game, averaging 6 yards per carry. Jordan, over 108 yards per game. I think this one could get really spicy here in the run game. We'll see what USC is able to do here. But I like this team. I bet against USC a couple weeks ago with Illinois. If you remember, that was a crazy game. The Illinois ended up on top. But USC still hung 35. I mean, this was still a really great game on the road. I think if you look at both of these teams, they are mirror images almost of each other on paper. They both have identical records. And Michigan 2-10 against the spread when playing a team off a loss. I just don't trust this Michigan team. I think that, again, another one of those teams with the name on the jersey gets a little bit more respect. Yeah, I know the other team's USC, but you just said it right. Since Lincoln Riley's been there, no one's really talking about this team, and that's just because of the expectation level and what we've seen from USC so far.
Kelly, I appreciate you being flexible on time. You have got an invite at the new beach place. We're going to be doing some fun things in the future. Congrats on the wedding to your crew there. Apologies because I was at Florida State, Miami, and I couldn't get a signal very well, so I'm happy to talk to them sometime down the line. Last show for me of the week for OutKick, so I'll be back on Monday breaking down everything college football, and then I'm headed back down to the beach at the end of the week. The OutKick show is, I'm told, going to be airing on FS1. We got bumped around some with all of the Major League Baseball playoffs. Kelly, good stuff. I will see you next week on Wednesday. Wednesday of next week, we'll knock the fade out because I got to be on the road after.
Good luck to us this week, Clay. We're going to need it.
No doubt. We're going to need it. This has been The Fade. I'm Clay Travis. She's Kelly Stewart, a.k.a. Kelly in Vegas. Go follow her and go follow me if you haven't already. You can click like and subscribe on the YouTube channel as well. We'll see you guys next week.